A German U-boat was cruising when the captain spotted an enemy plane approaching. He quickly ordered an emergency dive. As the crew quickly operated the submarine, the captain was suddenly hit by the enemy plane. The deputy captain saw this and knew that the captain was no longer saved. He had to immediately order the crew to close the hatch and then dive the submarine to a depth of 30 meters. They narrowly avoided the enemy plane's attack by diving in time, but the crisis was still unresolved. The boat crew dared not relax for a moment. Shortly after the submarine set sail, the sonar operator detected the sound of a propeller. Upon hearing the news, the deputy captain immediately retreated 2 meters in fear. Following his reaction, the submarine was ordered to slow down and dive to 120 meters. They were eventually discovered. Shortly after, the sonar operator reported that the propeller noise was getting louder. He believed it was a destroyer. The deputy captain could not stop them. He could only command the submarine to keep diving. In a dangerous situation, all personnel held their breath and dared not make any sound, fearing the submarine's trace would be exposed in the next second. The destroyer appeared above the submarine. The crew heard the depth charges falling into the water. They had to prepare for collision avoidance as the depth charges soon exploded around the submarine. The explosion caused a violent shockwave that shook the submarine. Luckily, this didn't last long. The submarine quickly reached a depth of 15 meters. The deputy captain thought that it must be this depth that just avoided the pursuit of the destroyer, so he asked them to maintain this depth and start. They sailed silently, but soon the young men heard a propeller above them, indicating that 2 destroyers had gathered above them. One destroyer had already scared them. It's tight enough. Now there are 2 submarines. How should they deal with it? Soon, Sheng Nanyuan detected the situation again. Hearing so many depth charges dropped at once scared the crew member and unconsciously prepared for collision again. Then the depth charges began to explode around the submarine. This time, they didn't have any time to breathe. The continuous bombing soon caused a fire in the submarine, and the submarine was sinking rapidly. The submarine had a lot of water leakage. Despite the crew's efforts to repair it, the damage was too serious. The seawater tilted inwards, and the fire spread. Meanwhile, the submarine sank uncontrollably. The submarine was very nervous due to the situation. Some crew members stopped repairing as they knew they couldn't escape. Some crew members took out photos of their wives and daughters to bid them farewell. The seawater quickly filled the cabin, and the deputy captain chose to stay with the submarine as it sank to the seafloor. Allied officers at sea saw floating objects rising to the surface. They knew that the German submarine had been sunk, so they left with satisfaction. The German U-boat was hunting when the captain suddenly spotted a transport ship ahead, with no escorting destroyers in sight. He was confused and worried it might be a trap. However, considering the size of his wolf pack, he decided to attack, as there were now 5 U-boats nearby, including their own submarines. They could handle any unexpected events later. Then he quickly ordered the torpedo compartment to load the torpedoes. After preparing the torpedo compartment, he re-evaluated the situation of the transport ship. To ensure a single shot's effectiveness, he directed a full-scale attack to the opposite side. The submarine quickly changed course and waited for the target. Once the direction and speed were suitable for launching, Captain Hoffmann immediately ordered the torpedoes to be launched. But not long after the 2 torpedoes were launched, he turned around and found a British destroyer rushing towards them. Hoffmann quickly ordered the submarine to dive. Several crew members on the submarine rushed to the landing site to increase the landing weight, enabling the submarine to dive rapidly. Meanwhile, the torpedo room operator continued to count down the time until the torpedo hit. The wait made everyone nervous. They were eager to hear the torpedo hitting the ship. High expectations often lead to greater disappointment. The first torpedo exceeded the hit time, but there was no movement, indicating that it did not hit the target. Then the sonar operator reported that the second torpedo was not dumb. The personnel in the torpedo room had not received the captain's order and immediately prepared to reload the torpedoes. The captain regained consciousness when he received the telegram from the submarine headquarters before the attack. They didn't expect to receive a new order at this time. They must make the content in the shortest time possible. Arriving at the new target point, another order also stated that they must avoid fighting. The captain had no choice but to order the attack to stop and let the guards return to the rear cabin. The first officer who heard such an order could not accept it for a while. Although the first officer was very reluctant, Hoffmann was the captain now and he could only accept it. The torpedo compartment was loaded with torpedoes. They intended to launch another attack, but the first officer unexpectedly instructed them to cease the attack. Hearing this news, they were so angry that they cursed again. Soon after, they left the battle zone and headed towards the target terrain. They met a supply ship on the way and quickly refueled the submarine. Hoffmann asked the first officer to stay and boarded the supply ship with his confidants. Upon boarding, 2 officers awaited him and assigned a secret mission to reach the coordinates in the letter within 5 days. They would contact another ship in exchange. Also, all mission details had to be kept secret from all members, and they could not mention it in their own logs or future reports. Hoffmann became very curious about their conversation. Surprisingly, they brought a man. After a short introduction, Hoffmann took him straight to the submarine. The crew found an enemy plane rushing towards them as they boarded the boat. He asked them to stop refueling and disconnect the hose. The crew members quickly took their positions. A crew member was hit by the enemy plane despite the anti-aircraft machine guns firing when he ran to the commander after closing the refueling hatch. The cannon hit him, and he plunged into the sea. Hoffmann, robust, promptly requested rescue. Luckily, they acted quickly and the crew member was promptly rescued. However, he still became the first casualty on the submarine. The man in the boat was already trembling with fear. After Hoffmann entered the boat, he immediately ordered the submarine to dive urgently. The crew hurried to the front cabin. When Hoffmann saw the man again, he was still trembling. Hoffmann said nothing else, just asked him to stay well because he knew the man must have crucial information.